thought you were calling the lead in order.
No.
With the microphone.
No.
Here.
Not too aggressive, sorry.
Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Independence City Council for Monday, August 20th, 2018. Our invocation this evening is going to be offered by Lupe Moy, layperson, Independence State Public Affairs Council of the LDS Church. If you would please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Almighty Father in heaven, we come before Thee at the beginning of this City Council meeting, giving thanks for all that we have. We thank You for this beautiful day. We thank You for the rain, and we thank You for all the blessings that we have, the blessing of living here in America and the freedoms that we enjoy. And we are thankful to be living here in Independence, and thankful to our mayor and our city council and all of the residents here in the city. And we ask Thee that Thy Spirit be with us, that we will be able to use law and order to discuss different matters in the city, and that each side will be heard, and that we will use wisdom to do what is right, and to hear everybody's voice, and that common ground will be made, and that we will respect everybody's opinion, and that everything will go okay. And we're grateful to live here in Independence and to do what is right, and to also try our best with the city initiative in Independence for All. And we thank Thee for everything, and we ask these things in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmembers Huff.
Here.
Perkins.
Here.
Doherty.
Here.
DeLucy. Robertson.
Here.
Van Camp.
Here.
Mayor Weir.
Here. We have one presentation this morning. This is our one-year update on the Rental Ready program. Mr. City Manager.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, about 1 year ago, the City Council made a very bold and decisive leadership move to implement an interior inspection program that we call Rental Ready here in the City of Independence. Tonight, I'd like to take this opportunity to update the council on the progress of that program 1 year in. I've asked Assistant City Manager Lauren Palmer to come and provide you with a brief update on that and really share some of the successes we've seen as a result of that. So without further ado.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Lauren Palmer, Assistant City Manager. I'm pleased to present for you tonight the 1 year in review of the Rental Ready program. This program was adopted back in September of 2016, adopted early to go into effect on June 1st, 2017, to give time to hire staff and really communicate to the landlord and rental community about how this program would work. The purpose of the program was threefold: to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the community, to maintain attractive neighborhoods, and to ensure that a basic minimum standard was met for the interior of the structure. In general, the way the program works is that all rental units in the city have to be licensed, through our business licensing process. And so landlords are required every 2 years to hire a qualified housing inspector to conduct a rental inspection on the property to ensure that it meets these basic minimum standards. After the program was adopted, as I said, there was kind of this build-up period of taking time to complete several tasks to make sure that we were ready for full implementation on June 1st. I do just want to take time this evening to recognize the hard work of Tom Scannell, our Community Development Director, and Perry Hill, our Business Licensing Compliance Officer who works on the Rental Ready program. I get to stand before you tonight, but we have a lot of other staff in our Community Development Department who have done really the hard work of getting this program off the ground. A lot of work involved in working to identify and educate our landlords about that business licensing process, getting the website up, and identifying and training those inspectors to implement this program. Their hard work has certainly paid off. In the first year of the program, we have just seen tremendous success. This chart that you see here, those two bars on the left side represent where we stood with our business licensing before we implemented the Rental Ready program. So we had just shy of 8,000 units that were registered. We knew that number was low because based on the U.S. Census estimates, we were estimating about just over 18,000 rental units in the City of Independence, so we knew there was a lot of room for growth there. Since implementing the Rental Ready program and all the work of our staff to reach out and identify landlords, that number has more than doubled. So we now have registered over 17,000 units, which is much closer to that census estimate number. You'll also notice that we've increased the number of landlords who are participating in the program. Almost over 900 landlords now. New landlords have come into the program since Rental Ready was adopted. This chart just describes that a little bit more. Of the 9,000 units that were added over the last year through the Rental Ready program, slightly more than half, about 56%, are new units that were identified from existing landlords. So by reaching out to those landlords who we already had licensed but asking them to update their information, we brought 5,100 more rental units into compliance. But then in addition to that, what's probably more notable is that we had over 4,000 brand new units brought into the program from landlords who had never been licensed before through the City of Independence. So again, just tremendous outreach to make sure that our records were up to date for current landlords and to make sure that we were capturing and licensing those landlords and units that had never been in the program before. One real success of this program has been the launch of the website. Staff did a lot of work on this, and it's really a tremendous tool for both landlords and tenants and just the community in general. All the information about the program is here. Anyone can come online and learn more about how to get licensed, how to identify an inspector. And what's really nice about this website is that all of our licensed inspectors through the program can upload their inspections through a portal that we have developed on the website. So this saves our staff a tremendous amount of time. Perry's able to answer a lot of questions by referring people to the website first, and they can generally get the information that they need there. So it's been a really nice tool that has helped with staff efficiency. I keep mentioning these inspectors. After adopting the program, we did an RFQ process and identified 6 qualified inspection companies who are pre-qualified to perform these rental-ready inspections. Again, staff did an extensive process to ensure their qualifications, make sure they were trained and fully up to speed on all of the minimum standards in the program. Just a lot of outreach, making sure that this program was ready to go before the launch date in June. Again, I think that advanced work really paid off. I'm going to give you a few slides now just to kind of demonstrate some of the success stories that we've identified through the inspections. Over 3,000 inspections have been performed so far in the first year of the program. The top issues identified have been missing or broken smoke detectors, miscellaneous electrical issues, and sanitary sewer issues. So really, those items that harken back to the core mission of the program, which was those health, safety, and life issues. Since adopting the program, over 500 units were identified where smoke detectors were either faulty or missing, and those have all been corrected. So just a nice piece of information about how this program is really enhancing safety in our community. This is another slide that just speaks to one of those top inspection items, electrical issues. Here are a couple of slides that indicate areas where we found electrical wiring that was exposed to water, creating a real fire and safety hazard. Those issues were able to be corrected. Picture says 1,000 words. Here's some pictures of just issues that we have with sanitary sewer lines and some of the older areas where we have sewer stacks that are cracked and leaking. Again, we were able to identify those and get those corrected through the program. This is a before and after picture. This is actually a rental property where a landlord was having trouble with a tenant who was not properly maintaining the property. The landlord did not have a proper lease agreement in place for the property. So working with our staff, helping get licensed through the program, we were able to give that landlord some good advice about how to work through the landlord-tenant law, get that tenant out of the property and make the necessary repairs, and then also to help that landlord get a better lease in place and get a better relationship with tenants in the future. I think this is a real success story because it shows how the program, we really build it as being beneficial for tenants, but it also has an advantage for our landlord community as well. All of you as elected officials, these are exactly the kind of phone calls that we receive at City Hall about neighborhood issues when you have a tenant or a property owner, but in this case a tenant who isn't maintaining and caring for the property in the right way, and how that spills out and creates issues in the neighborhood. So here's a good example of how we were able to help the landlord get that issue corrected, and it really improved this property, improved the condition for the landlord, but also helped benefit the neighborhood as a whole. These are just a few other examples of anecdotes that we've heard about the program, really from all layers of involvement in the program. You know, inspectors have told us that they think it's really positive, that they are seeing the benefits of making the improvements in these units. You know, they're in those units day in and day out and have really seen the impact of doing these inspections. Response from landlords has been positive. I think as the example I just mentioned, they've seen how this can benefit their relationships with their tenants, and especially from our out-of-state landlords. They've said that this program is a tool for them to help keep their property management companies accountable and make sure that they are keeping up with those inspections and complying with the terms of their property maintenance agreements. And then certainly, as I mentioned, improvements to the neighborhoods. We've heard anecdotally examples of where when a rental property gets improved, that has a spin-off benefit for the entire street or neighborhood. These pictures are an example of that. This is on the 600 block of Cedar Avenue. The picture here in the upper left-hand corner, the one with the red car, this is a rental property that was improved as part of the Rental Ready program. And it was actually the mailman who contacted our staff and said, you know, I've spent a lot of time on this street, and I can tell you that property looks 1,000 times better than it did before, and started to notice anecdotally that some of these other properties on the street started to improve after that. That really, when one property starts to improve, it sort of motivates others along the block to improve as well. So again, just a success story of how the program is really benefiting the entire neighborhood as a whole. These are just some comments that our staff has received in emails. I know these are a little difficult to read on your slide, and I won't read all of these verbatim, but again, just kind of a sampling of some of the positive feedback that we've received from the community. There's one quote here that says, the Rental Ready program helps protect those who may not have the voice or the ability to protect themselves. Another example here is from a mother who speaks about her daughter being in a rental property and feeling like the program's helped her get some assistance from the landlord that she didn't have the courage to seek on her own. And then another quote here that I've seen the significant change in my Northwest Independence neighborhood since the Rental Ready inspections have started. So again, just some positive feedback that we are getting where the community is really starting to notice the impact of this program. Finally, just to wrap up, I think that's a really important fact to share with you that so far after a year of inspections, the city has not received a single complaint on any of the inspectors. Really worked hard to identify the right people for that program, and again, to do that training to get them well qualified to do this work, and all of those inspectors are very professional, and we've had only positive feedback. So I think that's a really good sign. There is a certain level of anxiety about a stranger coming into your home and looking at your home, but so far they've been very professional and certainly implemented the mission of this program. Over 90% of landlords are compliant in this first year. As our staff has talked to other communities who have implemented similar programs like this, they say that it's taken them years to get up to a 90% compliance rate. So we've really had some good success in this first year of the program. And then we're starting to get some regional and even national notoriety. This is a list of cities who have reached out and contacted us to seek information about duplicating this program in their communities. So we're really starting to get some positive attention on this. And that's a good segue. As part of this presentation tonight, I want to introduce Tara Raghuveer. She is with the Kansas City Eviction Project. Tara is local, grew up in Kansas City, but went off to school at Harvard, lives in Chicago now, and works with the Kansas City Eviction Project. She's going to talk more about their program and the research that they've done, but doing a lot of research around affordable housing and eviction issues, and has really highlighted independence and the Rental Ready program as part of the research that they're doing. So we thought it would be beneficial for the council and the community to hear a little more about that tonight as part of this presentation. So, Tara, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren, and thank you, Mayor Weir and the City Council. I would also be remiss if I didn't start by thanking Zach Walker and Lauren and the team that I've been in conversation with for now a little bit over a year. So as Lauren said, my name is Tara Raghuveer. I'm a Kansas City native, and I've been researching housing and specifically eviction in Kansas City for over 5 years. I studied at Harvard, where I focused on sociology and urban policy, and I came back home to study evictions in Kansas City starting in 2013. My research was cited in Matthew Desmond's Pulitzer Prize-winning book, Evicted, and that's led to now over a year of meetings with community leaders, organizers, scholars, and service providers actually throughout the metro area. I currently oversee the housing campaign at a group called People's Action, a national network of grassroots organizing groups committed to racial and economic justice, and prior to this, I was the deputy director of a National Immigrant Rights Coalition. So again, thank you to the mayor and city council for having me, and as well to city manager Zach Walker and Lauren Palmer. And I also want to shout out Tom Scannell and Perry Hill for their steadfast leadership in implementing this program. I also want to start by commending Independence on taking leadership on the complex issue of housing justice. As Lauren said, I commonly cite Independence as a real leader in the region on this issue, not just for the Rental Ready program, but also for your LLC registration program and the online data that you've made available for researchers like myself to further study the issue of housing. So I wanted to start by sharing some background on the issues that I've researched, and hopefully this is helpful context that helps underscore the importance of programs like the Rental Ready program and more policy like it. So I'm hoping to commend you and also issue a challenge, because I see Independence as a leader in the region, and I hope to see more of that. So some background. Housing has been the largest expense for Americans across race and class lines since the 1960s, when it outpaced food. But in 2018, a person earning minimum wage and working full-time cannot afford a 2-bedroom apartment in any county in the United States. Meanwhile, federal support has not kept pace with community need. Only 1 out of every 5 cost-burdened renters who qualifies for federal assistance for their housing actually gets it, leaving more renters over time renting in the private market. So Matthew Desmond wrote the seminal text on eviction based in Milwaukee, and I came back to Kansas City to replicate some of his methods and see what I could find here. And initially my study was a 5-county study, so I was studying the Kansas side of the state line as well as the Missouri side. And since then I've compiled one of the richest data sets on evictions in the country. As many of you may know, in Missouri, formal evictions happen through the county courts and follow a process that's set by state law. Typically, a landlord files an eviction, posts a summons notice, and parties show up to the landlord-tenant docket, or they don't, and a judgment is made one way or another. In rare cases, an eviction may go to trial. But our understanding of eviction can't be limited to the court system. In my qualitative research in Kansas City, as well as in Desmond's research, we find that many, many more evictions happen informally, that is to say, outside of the courts, and actually with no data to represent them. One tenant told me, when I first moved in, the apartment was furnished. She provided a bed, dining table, refrigerator, and all that. And then one day I got late paying the rent. We didn't talk about it, just one day she came in and removed all of that without my permission. I had food in the refrigerator that she took. I had no choice but to leave. A landlord shared with me, "Oh, I shouldn't tell you, but I bring my revolver around with me. Her name's Maggie, and if anyone gives me trouble, like if I need someone to be out, I give them a peek. Nothing too bad, just a peek." Another landlord said to me, "I think to myself, who is this tenant? What do I know about them? Can they be trusted to catch up? Are they a nuisance? Do I believe their story? There are some tenants I really like, and I believe they're working hard, and I'll cut them a break. They appreciate that. So my point in sharing some of these stories is not that all landlords are bad, nor that all tenants are good or always right. Fundamentally, my point is that for landlords, their properties are their businesses. And for tenants, their properties are what they rely on for a roof over their heads. So the public policy approach must be one that doesn't rely on the goodwill of either party, right? So eviction is more than a forced move. It impacts physical and mental health, access to transportation, people's ability to keep their jobs, and much more. Insecure housing is particularly disruptive for kids, especially when they have to change schools many times over during the school year. Renters who are already hard-pressed to find affordable units face an even tougher challenge if they have a formal eviction on their record. So eviction becomes both a cause and a condition of poverty. So the data set that I've compiled includes over 183,000 eviction filings from 1999 through 2017. They're all from the Jackson County court records, so they encompass the City of Independence. The data are at the address level and have been geocoded and mapped so that we can analyze them. But since it's only court data, again, I need to emphasize that it's only representing the formal evictions that actually make it to the court system. So 182,992 evictions were filed between 1999 and 2017 in Jackson County. That's a crude average of 39 to 42 eviction filings per business day. And that results in about 25 eviction judgments made per day, or 25 individuals or families who are court-ordered to leave the premises of their property per day. These are the eviction filings in Jackson County from 1999 through 2017. At first glance, this chart is really boring, but actually in its consistency over time, I find it pretty interesting. So over the course of almost 2 decades, there are approximately 9,000 evictions filed in Jackson County through the formal system. You see a little bit of a spike around the financial crisis in 2008 and 2009, but besides that, it's been relatively consistent over time, and those are really high numbers, and again, just the formal ones. In 2017, we've actually done some more recent analysis on the past full year. There were 9,292 evictions filed. That's a 2% increase over 2016. And what this chart doesn't show is that there's specifically been an increase in rent and possession eviction filings. So that's a particular case type that represents an eviction that's filed on the basis of people's inability to pay their rent within what's mandated by their lease. So that points to a changing dynamic in this metro area about affordability and kind of the churn of families out of their homes. Another important stat that I want to point out because of the LLC registration program that Independence has is that LLCs have been playing a rapidly increasing role as the biggest evictors in Jackson County per our research. Of the 9,000 odd evictions filed in 2017, 4,125 evictions were filed by LLCs, most of which are out-of-state LLCs. That's a 30% increase over 2016 and a 311% increase over 10 years ago. So that mechanism, owning property as an LLC, is legal, but it also obscures individuals from having responsibility to the City of Independence and to their tenants. It can make it harder, as you know, to regulate the behavior of certain landlords. So this is a graph that shows a little bit of what happens in the formal eviction process in the courts. I won't go into much detail, but the really important stat to see here is that when a tenant actually makes it to the landlord-tenant docket in the Jackson County Courthouse, 99.8% of the time, the landlord wins that case. And that's a win rate that we wouldn't necessarily expect to be true in any sort of legal system. A lot of that has to do with representation. 48% of 84% of landlords have representation versus only 2% of tenants. So it's a story of representation in the courts, as well as, of course, the fact of a lot of the tenants just not having a legal defense because they have fallen behind on their rent, and that's almost an immediate eviction. So this is a map that shows you some of the analysis that we've been able to do because our data are all at the address level. On the left, you have a map of population per square mile in Kansas City, and then on the right, you have evictions per square mile. Unfortunately, my maps were created with Kansas City, Missouri in mind and not Independence. But one thing that's interesting here that I'll dig into is I made this map on the right with a data scientist who's not from Kansas City. And the first thing he asked me once we made this map was, what the heck is that bright line running through the middle of Kansas City? And for those of us who are from here, we know that that bright line is Troost. It's the historic racial dividing line in the city. And again, more of our findings kind of point to the impact of race in terms of determining eviction. So this is evictions per square mile on the left, the same map we just saw, and then the black population per square mile on the right. In the most dramatic juxtaposition on this map, 19 times the evictions were filed on opposite sides of just Troost, that one road. So the impact of evictions in Kansas City and in the metro area disproportionately falls on the black community. Further to that point, here's a multivariate analysis that breaks this down by race, by income, by rental status. You can think about the first variable here, which I don't know if you can see. It's named the white alone variable. You can think about it also as the non-minority variable. And basically what this shows us is that with everything else taken into account, including income, race is the most important factor in determining whether or not someone will be evicted in Jackson County. And this is a graph that shows that correlation. Basically, the greater the white population in an area, the fewer the evictions, and the greater the black population, the greater the number of evictions, again, even when we hold income constant. So I want to conclude. I've shared some broader context that hopefully helps you understand the importance of policies like the Rental Ready program, like the LLC registration program. I really think those types of policies are exemplary of what can fit into a comprehensive housing strategy that helps address some of the greater issues that I drew out here. And like I said, I often refer to the Independence Rental Ready program when I discuss our research with other neighboring cities, with cities across the region. And I'm a national, I work on this issue nationally, and I've raised this program up as one of the examples of how to do well by the issue of housing, which is extremely complex, and there are a lot of factors to consider. But I think Lauren's presentation laid it out really well, that there are certain policy levers to pull that are beneficial both to the tenants that are living in housing that's by and large unaffordable and sometimes uninhabitable. And then it can also be beneficial to the landlord community in cities like ours, where the landlords are in the private market and they're providing most of the affordable housing stock that we have. So I really see Independence, as I said, as a leader, and I think there's actually an opportunity to take on even more leadership. You might have seen just recently, Kansas City, Missouri passed a ballot measure that basically does what the Rental Ready program does in Independence, and I think I'm hopeful that Independence can continue leading the way for the region. So thank you for having me, and thanks again to Lauren and Zach.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you being here and sharing that research with us.
If I may.
Yes.
In championing this, this is a program that I've worked hard on. I wanted the eviction stats on it, but it was impossible to do. You having the data,
Yes.
does it go down geographically?
It does, yeah. So I actually have the eviction data all at the address level. So I haven't done a carved out analysis of Independence, but if there's interest for that, my team could definitely take that on.
I would dearly love to see the before and after of when the implication of the Rental Ready program was, if you can do that.
Definitely.
We brought it up, but we couldn't get this data that you've been accumulating for so long, which is truly unique. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Are there any comments or questions from the council? No? Thank you very much. I just want to say, too, to Tom Scannell and especially Perry Hill, what a marvelous job you've done in monitoring and implementing this program and working so closely with our inspectors. You know, Perry has a true passion for this. This is, you know, he truly cares about these people and providing for our community. So thank you very much for taking on something that I know has been an enormous challenge and doing it with such compassion. Thanks. Anything else? Yes.
I'd like to commend Perry and Tom too. And we have Mr. Laboda here, who is not only one of our inspectors, but a landlord himself, and has brought forth many objects of interest to how to do this the right way, and has worked well with Perry. But stand up, Perry. Because we all know Tom. Stevie? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This takes us to our consent agenda.
Madam Mayor?
Yes?
I would like to move to approve the reports and recommendations of the city manager.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any items any council member wishes pulled for separate consideration? Hearing none. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Councilman Robertson?
Item 5 and 6.
Any others? Okay. Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll on the consent agenda minus items number 5 and number 6?
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
Robertson,
Yes.
Van Camp,
Yes.
Mayor Weir.
Yes. Councilman Robertson, item number 5.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to pull both of these. Both of these are for the two lobbyists that the city has, one for the city itself and the other lobbyist for IPL. And my concern is that we're seeing in the renewal now of these contracts a significant increase. One contract a 30% increase and the other almost 100% increase. So it looks like, you know, we're going to be spending a significant amount of money if we renew the contracts for both of these lobbyists. So my question is, do we need to? Do we need two lobbyists? And the second question is, should we return and have a request for proposal and evaluate the cost for the city again? Because when we're talking close to $250,000 for lobbyists, I know that there has been a significant amount of things go on in Jeff City and will continue to, but it seems to me that with two lobbyists, it's a little more than we need, especially since I haven't seen a performance review for either one. And so that was my concern when we first hired them 2 years ago. And in the material that we got, I didn't see any performance review of what they had done for us or prevented for us or whatever. And so I think, at least for me, I would like for us to table this for another meeting and at one of our study sessions talk about whether we want to have a request for proposal or maybe downsize to one lobbyist. So my motion for both of these would be to postpone until our first meeting in September, which, Sarah, is the 4th, September 4th.
Councilman, would you like the city manager to answer your questions?
Sure.
I'm just asking.
About
I mean, you
performance
asked.
review?
You asked a number of questions regarding
Yeah.
the necessity, why this is being recommended. So maybe we'd
Okay.
allow him to answer those questions and then return to your motion.
Sure. And I'll start off by saying, you know, I think that would be more of a policy decision of the council about the number of lobbyists and such, so I'm not sure I'm qualified to weigh on that. But the council will recall that a few meetings ago, I think it was towards the end of June, We did have our 2 lobbyists come in and give an annual performance report. We don't require in the RFP, council member, that we do a formal evaluation, but we do ask that they come in and brief the council at the end of the session just to try to talk about what happened that session and what specifically they focused on. Since we're contemplating both of those, I'll kind of give, just a quick summary of what I can recall offhand with both of these individuals. I'll say that in a prior lifetime when I worked in Jefferson City in the General Assembly, it was really about targeting some misdeeds, if you will, or what was perceived to be waste, fraud, and abuse in state government. And I think the prevailing mentality, in my estimation, my opinion only, in Jefferson City these days, is really looking at doing that same level of scrutiny with local governments and municipalities. There was one state senator who was famous for saying that cities were engaging in citation through taxation and, trying to raise revenues. And we really saw a lot of harmful legislation targeted specifically at municipalities. So what I personally have been impressed by with especially John Barget has been his ability to fight off some of these local government, local control ordinances, or at least amend the City of Independence out of those. The same could probably be said and should be said of Steve Tilley. We talked a lot about the cell tower ordinance, or legislation that creeped up on us a few years ago, and this year we were able to get municipalities exempted from some of the joint pole attachment legislation, which would be hard to quantify here tonight, but certainly would have cost the city a substantial amount of revenue, specifically in the Power and Light Fund. You heard just from our presenter a minute ago about the commendation on the LLC registration. I know Mr. Barget was able to work with Senator John Rizzo to get independence included in what was going to be a Kansas City-specific bill. We've been able to now retain ownership of the Frontier Trails Museum as a result of some of their legislative efforts. Cable franchise fee, which this council was able to increase a few years ago, Jefferson City took a look at lowering that by 2%, which would have been about $500,000 of revenue lost from the general fund. So I've waxed poetic for 2 years now about declining municipal revenues, and I can tell you these gentlemen have kept a tremendous amount of bad legislation from seeing the floor, certainly from seeing the governor's desk. So that would be just some background on the value. Unfortunately, the real value these days is coming in the prevent defense that they're playing, and we're seeing some in the offense, but really we're keeping a lot of bad legislation from further eroding local control, local decision making, and certainly local revenues.
I guess my question also has to do with, do we need 2? So I know Mr. Barget has done a significant amount of work on some of these issues with our municipal court and some of the other problems that we've had in Jeff City because of the legislation that's occurred down there. I'm wondering whether he would be able to handle both, since there's really not too many issues except some of the poll issues with IPL at this point. So
there was one instance this past legislative session where there was a conflict of interest by Mr. Barget with a different client that he represented that we were able to use Mr. Tilley for. Beyond that, I think, as I said a moment ago, I would leave that to the discretion of the council.
Okay, so there is a motion to postpone. Motion fails for lack of a second. Councilman Robertson.
I'll move item number 5.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
Robertson,
Yes.
Van Camp,
Yes.
Mayor Weir.
Yes. Councilman Robertson, item number 6.
I prefer not to move 6. I'll let someone else move it if they want to.
Is there a motion for approval for item number 6?
Yes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
Robertson,
No.
Van Camp,
Yes.
Mayor Weir.
Yes, item number 6 passes. This takes us to our second readings. Madam City Clerk.
These next bills will receive a second reading and be considered by the council. Bill number 18-063, an ordinance authorizing acceptance of the 2018 Midwest High-Intensity Drug Trafficking Area Memorandum of Understanding for DEA Task Force Initiative and related documents with the Kansas Bureau of Investigation for a grant award in the amount of $146,166, making the necessary appropriations, authorizing future change orders for additional funding and/or time extensions, and authorizing certain future appropriations. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
Robertson,
Yes.
Van Camp,
Yes.
Mayor Ware.
Yes. Ordinance passes.
Bill number 18-064, an ordinance authorizing acceptance of a grant in the amount of $310,050 from the Missouri Department of Transportation for reimbursement of overtime for the police department for impaired driving enforcement and youth alcohol liquor compliance checks from October 1st, 2018 to September 30th, 2019, authorizing future change orders and/or time extensions for the same project and making the necessary appropriations. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
Robertson,
Yes.
Van Camp,
Yes.
Mayor Ware.
Yes, ordinance passes.
Bill number 18-065, an ordinance authorizing acceptance of a grant in the amount of $182,550 from the Missouri Department of Transportation for reimbursement of overtime for the police department for a crash investigation software license, LETSAC conference fees, and hazardous moving violations enforcement from October 1st, 2018 to September 30th, 2019, authorizing future change orders, extensions, amendments, or addendums for additional funding for the same project and making the necessary appropriations. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins, Doherty,
Yes.
Robertson,
Yes.
Van Camp,
Yes.
Mayor Ware.
Yes, ordinance passes.
Bill number 18-068, an ordinance amending Chapter 4 of the Code of the City of Independence, Missouri to require a low-voltage electric permit. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please.
Mayor, I have
Yes,
a couple
yes.
questions, if I
Councilmember
could.
Robertson?
So I just had a couple questions as to what a couple things mean. I don't know whether I ought to ask Councilman Huff or staff, but it's on the second page under D and E. So it says the system is not required to be permitted by the International Building Code. Are we operating, first of all, under the International Building Code? Or is it a national building code? Is that a typo?
I'm going to ask our Community Development
Okay.
Director, Tom Scannell, to come up and start the discussion for you.
Tom Scannell, Community Development Director. In paragraph D in the ordinance that you referenced, council member, there's several different codes, one of which is the International Building Code, which covers certain things, and then there's the National Electric Code, which is strictly focused on electric wiring, low voltage wiring, that sort of thing. So we wanted to make that exclusion so as if there was so that there's not a conflict between the International Building Code and the NEC. What this is saying is that if it's not required to be permitted by the IBC, that it's then exempt.
Okay. And then I have a question on E. It talks about the building official or designated deputy inspector shall research the requirements of the 2017 National Electrical Code. I thought we adopted that code, but it's saying to make field investigations that they need to research that, but it doesn't say for sure who's going to do that. And then it says that their decision shall be binding. So I wondered, number one, are we going to educate and have some people or person designated that will be educated and do that research? And secondly, is there an appeal process? If one person has the ability to say no, what option does a citizen have?
Sure.
Is there an appeal?
Sure. So the city has a unique partnership with IPL on the inspection side of things. So IPL performs the electrical inspections and is looking at those components of the structure. If there are questions, what this is basically saying is that the building official and the IPL inspector can talk, converse, and reach out to the ICC, which is the International Code Council, to get some guidance on this unique circumstance. So that is what that portion is allowing. To answer your question on the 2017 NEC, the City Council passed the resolution of intent, I believe about a month ago, for the 90-day waiting period and until that is adopted. So later this year, we hope to have the 2017 NEC adopted.
If a decision's made, though, by one person, is there an appeal process that a person can?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
And that is through the Board of Building and Engineering Appeals. That process is outlined within the city code.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, will you please call the roll?
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins, Doherty,
Yes.
Robertson,
Yes.
Van Camp,
Yes.
Mayor Ware.
Yes, ordinance passes.
Bill number 18-069, an ordinance authorizing an agreement with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for the Public Transit Operating Assistance Grant in the amount of $16,731 for operating expenses associated with the transit service for the period of July 1, 2018 through June 30th, 2019, and making the necessary appropriations. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
Robertson,
Yes.
Van Camp,
Yes.
Mayor Ware.
Yes, ordinance passes.
Bill number 18-070, an ordinance levying a tax on all real property subject to taxation on January 1, 2018, within the corporate limits of the City of Independence, Missouri, for general revenue and public health and recreation purposes, and for the Independence Square Special Business Benefit District, said levies and assessments being separate and distinct, all for the fiscal year commencing on the first day of July 2018 and ending on the 30th day of June 2019. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
Robertson,
Yes.
Van Camp,
Yes.
Mayor Ware.
Yes, ordinance passes.
Bill number 18-071, an ordinance finding, determining, and declaring the necessity of acquiring temporary construction and grading easements for the 10520 U.S. Highway 40 Drainage Improvement Project, authorizing the negotiation and eminent domain proceedings if necessary, approving the plans and specifications for the project, authorizing the use of experts as needed, authorizing and directing the execution of documents, and the payment of funds to property owners or others holding property rights in conjunction with the project. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
Robertson,
Yes.
Van Camp,
Yes.
Mayor Ware.
Yes, ordinance passes.
Bill number 18-072, an ordinance amending ordinance number 7755 and repealing ordinance number 10024 concerning membership criteria for the Independence Square Advisory Board. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
Robertson,
Yes.
Van Camp,
Yes.
Mayor Ware.
Yes, ordinance passes.
Bill number 18-073, an ordinance amending Article 1 of Chapter 5 of the Independent City Code, removing the restriction to operate mobile food units within the geographic boundary of the Independence Square. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Councilman Perkins.
just a point of comment. It was, Tom Scannell and I were at a meeting just before our executive session in Inglewood, talking about different things that are moving on and taking place over there. One of the topics of discussion was our food trucks and some of the ordinances and restrictions and non-restrictions. Told them that we were working on some different plans and stuff, so it's quite timely that we were voting on this tonight.
Very good, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
Robertson,
Yes.
Van Camp,
Yes.
Mayor Ware.
Yes, ordinance passes.
Bill number 18-074, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement between Independence Power and Light and CenturyLink for joint use pole attachments. This will have no effect on any tax revenues or general revenues. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
Robertson,
Yes.
Van Camp,
Yes.
Mayor Ware.
Yes, ordinance passes.
Bill number 18-075, an ordinance amending articles in Chapter 2 Alcoholic Beverages of the Independent City Code, reorganizing the list of public facilities able to authorize alcoholic beverages at approved events and adding the Uptown Market. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
Robertson,
Yes.
Van Camp,
Yes.
Mayor Ware.
Yes, ordinance passes. This takes us to our first readings. Madam City Clerk.
These next bills receive their first reading and will receive their second reading at the next meeting on September 4th. Bill number 18-076, an ordinance finding, determining, and declaring the necessity of acquiring general utility easements and temporary construction and grading easements for the 2015-16 sanitary sewer projects, number 703-00801, authorizing the negotiation and eminent domain proceedings if necessary, approving the plans and specifications for the project, authorizing the use of experts as needed, authorizing and directing the execution of documents and payment of funds to property owners or others holding property rights in conjunction with the project. Bill number 18-077, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement between Independence Power and Light and Windstream KDL LLC for joint use pole attachments. This will have no effect on any tax revenues or general revenues. Bill number 18-078, an ordinance amending section 18.21.013 of the Independent City Code to allow law enforcement use of all-terrain vehicles on public streets, including rights-of-ways, alleys, sidewalks, or other public property, and prohibit the use of all-terrain vehicles by the public on public property. Bill number 18-079, an ordinance authorizing and directing the city manager to enter into an amendment of a site lease agreement with New Singular Wireless, PCS LLC, for use of the communications tower on the grounds of Fire Station Number 1 at 950 North Spring Street for a 5-year period with up to 3 5-year renewal periods for the sum of $1,450 per month.
Thank you. This takes us to citizen requests. Our first citizen is Brenda Perry, who requests to speak to the council regarding smart meters in relation to the electric grid. Ms. Perry?
Yeah, and my name's Brenda J. Perry. There's another Brenda Perry in town.
Oh, okay, Brenda J. Perry. Thank
Okay.
you.
After listening to last week's impressive sounding AMI smart meter sales pitches, I'm still not sold on them. The reason is still the same: the fire, health, security, and other issues we opponents keep talking about. The fact some of the vendors brought it up themselves tells me these are inherent issues, despite all sorts of sensors and alarms, and they know it. Analog meters simply don't have that reputation. I understand countless customers have them, their homes haven't caught fire, they haven't gotten sick, and their data is secure at this point. But the unlikely has and does happen at times, and you know it. Frankly, I'm even more concerned about the security of our cities and nation's electrical grids than all those factors combined. On August the 9th, U.S. Secretary of State Rick Perry was on the 700 Club TV program. They discussed the vulnerability of our grid system quite often. Secretary Perry wasn't talking about smart meters per se, but said old analog equipment isn't all bad. It can actually help protect us from cyber attacks and even solar flares. And he would have gotten that information from the experts on the subject, and it could be a saving grace. I was disappointed none of you asked the vendors about the strength of their services in such an event. No doubt you would have gotten some appeasing answer anyway. You know that foreign governments are working all the time to bring down the grid. AMI puts more of a burden on the grid. Don't think for a second it can't happen despite the very best precautions. If you think people are ticked off now about the new billing, be prepared for how crazy some of them would be if their whole way of life was disrupted. There definitely would be fire, health, security issues, and a whole lot more. You say smart meters will save money. Save money for what exactly, and who would benefit? Nearly $30 million has already been saved, partly due to analog meters. You say doing away with meter readers will save money over time. But for now, it seems like a trade-off with the new equipment and paying installers and technical experts. Due to possible increased security and grid issues, more money might need to be spent. Could there be unthought of costs down the road, like extended warranty insurance on the meters? You know smart meters cost more and don't last as long as analogs, which are still available. Other cities have rejected them. It seems like an unnecessary gamble. There's nothing more important than good service, safety, and our grid holding up no matter what. I hear that IPL is trying to be more fiscally responsible by reorganizing some jobs, and that's good. I hope it's reflected in our bills. It's obvious you and some customers want this for whatever reasons. A lot of people still don't know what smart meters are. Some of us have spent a lot of time on this. I'm sure you think we're stubborn, backwards, and doom and gloom. If there were no issues associated with them, we would be fine with it. Please respect our different viewpoint on this and let us keep our analog meters as long as we want without any penalties. Thank you.
Thank you. Their next speaker is Bradley Mudd, who requests to speak to the council regarding IPL billing issues. Mr. Mudd.
Hello, thank you, council and mayor. I just want to kind of address the billing issues. I know a lot of people's has doubled, and it's kind of ironic that you guys are having a fit about your lobbyists doubling. You know, you guys need to think about retired people, disabled people, single parent families and families. You know, they're trying to back to school monies. I mean, they're waiting on their light bill to decide where to spend their money. And it's just really put a hardship on a lot of the citizens, I think, and I hope you guys realize that. I don't know if you guys have recourse with this company that's doing your billing. Maybe, you know, you guys are pointing to them that that's the problem, but just wanted to point that out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mudd. Our next speaker is Lucy Young, who requests to speak to the council regarding city finances. Mrs. Young.
Thank you. My name is Lucy Young. It looks like Independence is closing its doors. First, the council voted to close the health department. Is IPL next? I am representing the 16% that can't afford to pay the lobbyists, the working poor, retirees on Social Security, the jobless, the chronically ill, those raising their grandchildren because their parents can't. I'm here for them. We are not invisible people. We have the right to demand fiscal responsibility. Running out of money keeps us awake at night. We live in a yo-yo economy. You are on your own. And that is unless you can vote to increase your own pay. The mayor and the council doubled their pay. Council members now make $20,000 and the mayor $40,000 a year. Each of you receives $500 a month for gas. That's a total of $26,000 a year for the council and $46,000 a year for the mayor. A total payroll of $162,000. Audacious. The council voted to approve $3.5 million for the farmers market. $600,000 of that was community development block grants that should have been used to help low-income people repair their homes. The council also approved $100,000 annually for the upkeep of the farmers market. It has not even opened yet. Audacious. The council approved nearly $50,000 for professional services related to Independence revitalization, outreach, and marketing, as recommended by the Downtown Redevelopment Coordinating Committee. Just where is the downtown located? That brings a total of nearly $100,000 spent on a committee that has not presented the predicted $200 million plan to the public. I hear that they will probably need more than that. Audacious. The council also voted to approve $50,000 to use in the development of the former Rockwood Golf Course. This left only $4,000 in the council goals budget until July 1st, 2009. What if there's an ice storm? What if there's an October surprise? Remember when the examiner had pictures of Christmas lights on the limbs that were still in the right-of-way? You were a 2nd District councilman at that time. The city couldn't afford to pick them up. Audacious. The council voted to close the health department to save $375,000. It served low-income people, and closing it was a charter violation. Audacious. The council voted for $50,000 for a consultant to consolidate the city's logo into one logo, like putting pearls on a pork barrel. Audacious. The council voted to table a 2015 utility rate study that would have kept rates low and reimbursed reimbursed ratepayers. But as it was a new source of revenue, it would have given the ratepayers $7 million a year base rate reduction, totaling $28 million in savings to the ratepayers. It had the PUAB's approval and included a rate consolidation and was tabled by the council. Audacious. Randall Hughes presented the IPL master plan, and on page 14, he showed us the exorbitant cost of purchased wind and solar energy, $5 million in the red. Audacious. The billing systems for both IPL and the finance department were deployed by our IT department. Neither work correctly. Finance is unable to cut checks for reimbursement. IPL is unable to sync the electronic statement with the hard copies. Many statements are not getting through to the mail to the customers. Cost of service is higher than it's ever been. People are thinking about moving out of town. Is this a plan to raise the median income again? Audacious. More energetic discussion was had over the $200 million for the Downtown Redevelopment Committee's plans for the square than for the thousands of complaints by the utility billing debacle. Audacious. Now you're looking at another $30 million for the AMIs, smart meters, and you approved $9 million to take down Missouri City. IPL ratepayers will be responsible for these debts. Would it be more advantageous to use some of that money to leave Missouri City standing, save 45 jobs, and develop biofuel instead? Audacious.
1 minute, Ms. Young.
Thank you. We pay some of the highest utility rates in the metro, only getting worse. People are facing their utilities being shut off, and per the city codes, would not be allowed to occupy their homes. The council advocated for a new internet sales tax due to declining bricks and mortar revenue only 4 months ago, yet millions of dollars are still being sent. Audacious. This may not be Lincoln's boyhood home, but it is our children's future. And if malfeasance doesn't bankrupt the city first. The council needs to address these audacious expenses and stop tax and spending philosophy. You need to remember the only free cheese is in a rat trap. Thank you.
Okay, this takes us to council member comments. I'll start on my right with Councilmember Doherty.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Go by our new city market there. It looks really nice. I went by there at night. The sign looks really good.
Thank you. Councilmember Perkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Not to jump on any bandwagon or anything like that, but the billing cycle and the issues that we have has been quite a pain. We've been receiving quite a few emails and stuff. I'm just going to read a quick email that I received from a young lady, constituent of mine. I think kind of just sums it up in a nice sort of way. As many others have voiced recently, I am very concerned not only about the billing accuracy of my recent utility bills, but more importantly, my inability to see them online, electronically, or receive them via postal mail. I have not physically seen a bill reflecting usage since the new system was implemented. As you can see from the screenshot below, my bills totals have nearly tripled in the last 3 months alone, and my energy usage has certainly not changed. Since moving to this home in November, I have historically not had a bill that exceeded $285 for billable services. My greatest concern is that my failure to pay the total amounts requested will continue to carry over a bill total that is not accurate and the growing delinquent. Then one day I will be in jeopardy of disconnection. And it goes on a little bit further. But I think that sums it up quite well, of the individuals in my district that are facing some of these issues and stuff. Mr. City Manager, can you give us just a brief overview of kind of where we're at on looking at the billing cycle issue?
Certainly. And I know the management analyst spoke to you a few weeks ago at the meeting as well, and we've been in close contact with him as he continues to do his independent assessment of that. And you know, that individual certainly reports to the council, but my encouragement to him has been to be more concerned about being right than being expeditious and getting an answer out, because we want to make sure that we understand this issue fully and that we can speak confidently once that assessment is completed. So I know he continues to work through and has been meeting with many staff and trying to diagnose all that. We've gotten emails, I believe as the mayor referenced a few weeks ago as well, from several customers, and I would encourage customers who have concerns about their bills to please continue to call us or email us. I'd like to thank Dan Montgomery, our water systems director who oversees customer utility billing, who's personally hand calculated all of those bills and has been able to double check those and provide some full assurance back to those customers who have reached out to us. Our biggest area of challenge right now that we continue to try to make sure we've got right is getting bills out to people, making sure that addresses are entered correctly, and those that are entered correctly are being processed correctly and routed to the right customer. And also, and I believe we've, and we'll see with our next cycle here, but that users bank, those who want to pay online, that their bank payment system recognizes our utility billing system, and that payment, once it's submitted, is actually received by the city. So we've had some customers who might say they have a $200 bill, they go to make the payment, they get the receipt, and it wasn't actually accepted by the city. I think we've worked through that, but we'll continue to monitor that with the next billing. But we will be very thorough about this. I can tell you as staff sympathize with the customers who have expressed these concerns to us, and our credibility is number one, and we're going to take our time to make sure that we've got this issue absolutely right before we rush to any conclusions about it.
Thank you. Mr. Montgomery, I got a bill I need to discuss with you after. That's all.
Okay, Councilman Huff.
I have nothing.
Councilman Robertson.
Nothing tonight, thanks, Mayor.
Councilman Van Camp.
I'd like to applaud everybody here for bringing your thoughts and recommendations, and to say again how proud I am of the Rental Ready program and its complete success, and how we're a beacon to other cities in bringing this forth. And that I too am getting emails about the bills, and they are being handled. But somehow we got to get past this. If there's anything that this council or I can do to help out, and I've expressed this before to Mr. Montgomery, and if you need more people, if you need something, please don't hesitate, because it's gone on long enough.
Thank you very much. I wanted to make the community aware of an opportunity that we have coming up on Wednesday morning for those who may be available. I know one of the big priorities for our community is the appearance and cleanliness of our city. The Independence Square Association has organized a cleanup of the Independence Square starting at 8 a.m. on Wednesday morning. Just for a couple hours. We have some, we're starting to get into the time of year where we start having a lot of events and a lot of visitors up on the square, and thought it would be a good opportunity just to take matters into our own hands and do a couple hours of cleaning up. They'll be cleaning the gutters from trash and debris and leaves and the curbs, power washing the sidewalks. There's some windows on buildings and some signage that people have put stickers on that we're going to remove. They will have some supplies available, some trash bags, brooms, dustpans. Feel free to come and bring your own supplies and help get our historic square cleaned up for the upcoming events that we have over the next several weeks. So meet at the Truman statue at 8 a.m. if you're available, and pitch in to help get our square cleaned up. As the council members have said, we continue to receive contact from citizens regarding their bills. We look at each one of those individually. Every single person who has contacted me directly has received a response from me. So we understand very much for the speakers tonight that this is causing stress and hardship on some of our customers, and we take that very, very seriously. So continue to reach out and let us help you resolve your particular issue as we continue to seek out the root of what's causing these issues and find the solutions. Mr. City Manager, anything else this evening?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
We're adjourned.